Hi, guys, and welcome to the fifth episode of Wake Up CX. Last week, we looked at how we can reduce the inbound volume of calls into a contact center. This week, it's to look at email and see what we can do on that front to help reduce the volume of inbound emails that we're receiving. Now, before we look at this, a couple of clear points for those of you that don't actually deal with emails in your contact center. Um, if you imagine a phone call when you have you speak, then the customer speaks, you speak, and the customer speaks. When you're dealing with emails, every one of these individual parts is a new email into your inbox. Typically, within the contact center, you would look at your first call resolution when you receive phone calls. And with emails, this is a little bit harder to track, but it's still possible. But it's just because you're already going to have multiple back and forths for most queries. And it's trying to segment which ones are for which query, which you can do through tagging in cases. But it also means that you tend to have more than a few responses per query. So it's not really a first email resolution, but how low can we get that number? How much can we reduce the number of emails back and forth to finding a suitable solution? So with emails, we tend to look at how many emails an advisor deals with an hour, which is a good idea for seeing how long it's going to take to clear a particular inbox. You've got 10 agents doing 8 emails an hour, for example. There's 360 emails in the inbox with nothing new due in, so you're going to clear it in about 4 hours. But at the same time, depending on the quality of those responses that you're sending out, depends on how much is going to come back in. So, what I've seen in the past is that people lean heavily on templates. And basically, they receive an email without even reading it. It's the first email in the chain. Right, I need to confirm name, address, all of this security information, whatever it is, so that I can look at this for you. And it's a nightmare because it basically guarantees that your first email is going to lead to another email coming in every time. So, in order to combat this, we're going to break them down into two categories. So, we're going to have our canned quick fixes and we're going to have our specific user queries. So, for our canned cases, these are general information. I'm having an overall problem with a website or a process. It doesn't need to be specific to an individual, so there's no data protection, GDPR issues, or anything like that. It's just general information. And for these things, they'll largely follow the same sort of process. So, are we checking to see if there's a major outage that's affecting everybody? If so, we can have a rough canned response for that, and a template's fine. If it's one of the main topic ones, again, we can have canned responses. And for these types of queries, there's not really much need for a back and forth. You need to provide an accurate time frame if it's an ongoing issue, and then just make a note that you need to follow up to give them a further update. So, for example, if you're having an outage, right, we're experiencing an outage right now. We've got engineers looking at the problem. The current ETA is to have this issue resolved within the next 24 hours. So then what you want to do is in 21 hours, send up a follow email just to let them know we're on schedule to complete this work. No further delays expected. Or as we were investigating this, we've uncovered a deeper fault, and the new time frame is now this. And again, the more information you give, the less there is a need for them to contact you back. You can also, if you want to avoid sending out tons of emails for this, is in your first response, you can say you can keep up to date with status alerts here, such as our Twitter feed, this page of our website, whatever it is you want to use, just so you've got one central point for putting all of your latest information. Now, over to the other category, which is where you tend to have a lot more back and forth, which is cases that require you to look at an individual's account or look at personal information, and you inevitably have to have a bit of back and forth because you can't just take random person's email and then go digging around and messing around with somebody's account. You need to go through security. Again, a bit more difficult, but it depends on the way in which you receive that query. So, firstly, if it's coming through a website through a web form, you want your web form to be as broad as possible, but able to be narrowed down via categories. So what's the main category of the issue? What's a subcategory of that category, just to bring it down, which will then add additional fields. So, right, based on you saying it's an issue with something not loading properly in your online portal, I need a screenshot. I need an error message or an error code, whatever it is. You can put all the specific details you need in there, along with a general box for them to provide queries. Now, be careful with this that you don't get too granular, because we tend to look at things in a much more narrow perspective, a much more granular view than our customers will. So our customers won't know all the ins and outs of everything that we're dealing with. So try and keep it broad enough that it's easy to understand. Again, if they're just submitting an email to an info or support email address, whatever the inbox is, they won't have all of that to guide them down. So what you want to do is, when you receive your first email, your first response needs to acknowledge what they've said to you, give a rough idea of what you expect the issue is going to be at this stage. And along with that, when you're saying, I expect the issue is to do with some record on your account, but in order for me to diagnose this further, please provide me with A, B, C, and D, along with all of the information I need to complete security so I can access your account. So rather than doing, they send in an email, you ask for security details, they come back with security details, you then ask questions to view information like specific to the fault, and then they come back with that, you're going to cram all that down into the one email response back. Again, it just cuts out one of the emails off that chain. If it's an issue that you can fix on the spot, want to follow the nice, easy process of educating the customer, giving them, this is the fix, this is how you can avoid this happening in the future. If you have any further queries, please let us know. But if it's not something like that and it's going to require a little bit more work, tell them that. Just be open and honest. Say, look, this is what we've looked into. I believe the error is here, but it's not something I can fix myself. It's going to take us a little bit longer to resolve your problem. I will have this resolved within 5 working days. Whatever the time frame is, just be clear. And then set yourself an alarm or a reminder to get in touch with them 24 hours before that deadline, or 6 hours before that deadline's up, depending on how small the window is, so that you can update them and say, this will be resolved on time, or unfortunately, due to this specific thing, we're going to have to extend the deadline. I do apologize. This is the new time frame. Now, the more information you give the customer, the more open you are and about that time frame, the better they can manage their time. And it saves them contacting you by email, phone, whatever. So again, that's just quick fixes that you can do. Drop some of the canned responses when you're dealing with people that have a unique issue, because a templated response doesn't fix a unique issue. It fixes a general broad category canned thing, then they can get a canned response. It's fine. So that's the main thing there for emails. For next week's episode, what I want to look at is IVRs, and we can try and get rid of that dreaded please hold while I transfer you, because it drives everyone up the wall. But just before I wrap up this episode, this is the 5th episode, and I can see that 10th episode over there on the horizon. So please, if you have any ideas for something I can do to make that episode just pop a little bit more, something special, please let me know. Drop me a DM. I'd love to hear your opinions, get some advice from you. So again, thank you for that, and I shall see you next week. Thank you.